Dear audience, dear students, welcome. Welcome in the course of organic production. Here we are in the lesson dealing with soil fertility. This is the 12th part of this lecture. Just to remind you, in order to link all the parts of the lecture, I wanted to show this list of the main issues that we were speaking about during this lesson. You already are familiar with these slides. Here we have a list of the most important agricultural practices that together contribute to soil fertility management. Through these practices, we keep and even improve the soil fertility. We have spoken about tillage and conservation tillage. Now, in this part, we will continue to speak about crop rotation and use of legumes as an important agricultural practices that keep and improve the soil fertility. And from the other side, can help to keep the level of nutrients in the soil in order to have higher and qualitative production of the next plant that comes after legumes. Um, this slide you know too. I just wanted to link this part of the lecture with what we have spoke before. So you just have a look in this, which are factors that we consider for planting when we are planning the rotation or when we are designing the rotation program. So have a look on it. It's mainly is focused, for example, in the importance of manure and cover crops in order to have the production of high biomass, which from the other side will improve soil cover and organic matter content. The same species never be sown in the same field in the following season. The green manure cover crops should be adapted to the region's microclimate, the soil, the farmer's production system, and which are the important benefits that these plants or the cash crops can have from the other plants that will be included in the rotation program. Other factor that is important to be considered is the demand for labor and for different equipments that have different plants, depend on their characteristics and agricultural practices. What else? In order to plan crop rotation, the effects of one crop on the following crop should be taken into account. What we will take into account? A root system, for example. We have to consider which are the differences from plant to another plant that are in a consecutive order, one after the other, with the idea that we have to put in this program or in this rotation plan different plants that have the capacity to build the soil, or I mean the soil fertility. It is important, or at least to combine one with the other, one that has high capacity to build soil and another one that has not high capacity to build the soil fertility. Compatibility with the following crop, for example, which are the chemicals one plant that live in one soil, that can influence or not the other plant that will come in the consecutive order. We consider the degree of resistance to be attacked by pests, and which is the impact in the rotation plan of one specific plant um, into disease, weed, and pest control or pest management, which is the biomass production. So we know the different plants have different biomass production, and the biomass we know from the other side is good because can cover the soil, protect the soil from erosion, and from the other side can uh, or have the capacity to create or to leave a huge quantity of biomass on the soil in order then will be transformed in humus or let's say organic matter. We consider nutritional requirements in order or with objective to conserve the nutrients, and from the other side to have the suitable nutrients for the other plant that is coming after one specific plant. If we go on more detail, when we consider labor and equipment demand for or for different plants that we want to introduce in a rotation plan, we have to consider or we have to remember that um, it is important to grow different crops which have different load work or different need for work and machineries in order or with the objective that this work to be distributed over the year. When going through the transition years, farmers should consider the labor and equipment requirements for different crops. Because what happens when a farmer don't know very well the agriculture practices of a new plant or new plants that he wants to introduce and to cultivate in his farm, probably having not experience with them, can do mistakes, especially regarding, in this case, for labor demand and for different equipments that probably he doesn't use previously. Some farm machineries get used for very few hours or very few days in a year, and in this case it is important to save some money and not to buy this machine, because uh, it is better if we find another solution. For example, farmers come to an agreement to share equipment, so can buy one equipment or one machinery which can be used by different farmers. Let's see from here how practically we can plan a rotation. We are starting from a simple rotation of a 3-year rotation with 3 plots. Looking at practical point of view, it is important here to mention that we firstly have to group similar plants in the same group, then divide the farm in plots with equal surface with each other, and then plan the order of groups of plants considering criteria mentioned in previous slides. In this case, we have 3 groups of plants and 3 plots, and the rotation is a 3-year rotation. Which are these 3 groups of plants? Legumes and fruit and vegetables, which in legumes we can consider peas and beans, and in the fruit vegetables can consider or can be tomatoes, aubergines, peppers, cucumbers, and squashes. For winter can be the family of alliums like leeks, onion, shallots, garlic, in this group too. Legumes are important, as we have spoken and as you know, because they take nitrogen out of the air and fix it into the soil. In this case, it, through others, enrich the soil with nitrogen. So in this case, in order to benefit as much as possible from the nitrogen that is now in the soil, and in order to, from the other side, to protect the environment and waters from the nitrogen that can be leached, it's better to plant the plants that need nitrogen. And from the other side, in this case, we can, how to say, we can feed these plants that have a higher need for nitrogen. In this case, it is recommended that when your broad beans are finished cropping, cut the plant and leave the root in the soil. After after legumes, we can plant brassicas, which includes cabbages, broccoli, turnips, kale, cauliflowers, Brussels sprouts. Grow them in a field where previously were legumes because brassicas need nitrogen. And the other group of the plants, there are root vegetables, which include carrots, onion, potatoes, leeks, and parsnips, which are similar to carrot. They do not require a lot of nitrogen and therefore will do well if planted where the brassicas were last year. So they have used nitrogen, the brassicas have used the nitrogen, and in this case, the root vegetables comes after a plant that use a lot of nitrogen. Here in this slide, you have in a simplified way what I spoke before. Let me activate the pointer. So we have here 3-year rotation. So year 1, year 2, year 3. And in fact, we have 4 plots. Plot 1, plot 2, plot 3. And the plot 4. The plot 4 has perennial plants. This is just in case you or farmers plant in their plots perennial plants. Okay, let's consider plot 1. We have in plot 1 brassicas. As we explained previously in the previous slide, we said that roots is better to come after brassicas, and then legumes and fruiting vegetables. In the plot 2, we have legumes and fruiting vegetables in the first year. As explained previously, remember that brassicas is better to come after legumes, especially because they leave nitrogen in the soil, and brassicas use or need a lot of nitrogen. And after brassicas again comes roots, which don't need a lot of nitrogen, don't like a lot of nitrogen. After roots, we have here legumes, and after legumes again we have brassicas. As you see, in one plot, one of these group of plants appear only one time, and the same is we see in the same year we have brassicas, for example, only one plot, legumes or fruiting vegetables in one plot, and the roots in another plot. How we plant them? It's important, as I said, to group the plants and to divide the farm in a number of the plots equal to the number of the group of the plants, and then plan the rotation. As we see, for practical uses, if the roots is the last here come the first, and then comes the others two, and so on. Here, the legumes and fruit and vegetables were the last, comes the first here, and then comes what was in the second, the second year into other. Here we have an example of a 5-year rotation. The logic is the same. Now the rotation is a little more complicated. I've tried to keep in mind all the criteria that we have mentioned previously regarding the group of plots and which plot, which plants or group of plants fits with another group of plants if they are placed in a consecutive order in the same plot. This is just to demonstrate here. You will have the possibility to consult these examples of rotation plan or rotation program in the repository of this platform. So you can go there, download in order to have more time to study and to try to understand better it. So this rotation is the 5-year. In this case, I have planned again and upload 6 perennial plants. It is facultative. Remember that if perennials are in rows, we can practice intercropping in order to have better covering of coverage of the soil, protection from the erosion, increasing soil and upground biodiversity. So all the benefits that we know because of the biodiversity in the farm and its benefits. In the plot 1, we have potato in the first year. After the root, in the second plot, we have roots. In the third plot, we have onions. In the fourth plot, brassicas. And then legumes, fruiting vegetables. And so on. So if we see in this direction, we see that brassicas that need nitrogen are again after legumes. And roots, especially carrots and some other, are, not immediately after legumes. And from the other side, even better are after onions, because onions leave a smell in the soil that makes possible that the carrots are less damaged. Okay, have a look on that. As I said, study them and please do question if you will have question about that. One example of 4-year rotation. You'll find a table in the repository files in our platform, and this will give you the possibility to study it deeply and to try to understand and memorize it. So in this another example of 4-year rotation, we have grouped the plants in 4 groups. First group, second group, third group, and fourth group. So in the first group can be planted in the same year, one after the other, 2 groups of plants or 2 subgroups, Solanacea and root plants, which are 2 groups, regarding the how much they use the nutrients. So we have the heavy feeders and the light feeders. In the second group, we have sweet corn, squashes, zucchini, and pumpkins, letuga or lettuces, which are heavy feeders, and garlic, onion, leek, shallots, which are light feeders. It is important here to mention and to remind to avoid planting beans in the same location after onion family. From the other side, it is better to use, and many experts advise that near onion and garlic go herbs like chamomile, dill, savory, parsley, beets, sweet peppers, spinach, lettuce, and burnt chips. Onions and garlic repel insect pests of strawberries and peaches. So even in these cases, it is considerable that to have near the peaches and strawberries onions, or we can use as intros. After onion can be planted carrots, because the carrot root fly would be confused from other left on the soil. The other plant that can come after onion family is lettuce and other radish plants. In the third group of the plants, we have peas, broad fava beans, French green beans, runner beans, which are legumes and are light feeders. From the other side, they leave the soil rich, especially with nitrogen. The fourth group is broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbages, calabrese sprouting, broccoli, cauliflowers, radishes, rutabagas, turnips, which are heavy feeders and is good to be used after. This to be used after. We have another example of four-year rotation. So we have four groups of plants and have four plots. In each plot will be each year, each growing season, one group of plants. These four groups are leaf crops. The second group is fruit vegetables like tomato, pepper, aubergine, and so on. The third group are roots, and the fourth group is legumes, plants that are or take part in the group of plants of legumes which fix in the soil the nitrogen from the air. The full plan organized in a table you will find again in the repository. You can download and study it in an independent way. Now I want to present a rotation program for a mixed farm. You know that depending on the specializations, we can have different farms, different specialization farms. For sure, the best one is mixed farming, because in this case, we can create agro-ecosystem more sustainable, more resilient, more healthy, with a better cycle and recycling of nutrients. In this farm, we have animals and have crop production. A part of them can be production of forage for animals, and the other can be production for human consumption. I'm just giving some photos of some of them. For example, alfalfa. There is a perennial plant which is used for forage for animals. We have lentils, which is for human consumption. Have cereals, different cereals, including maize and peas that are used for human consumption. this table, you see an example of a rotation plan, which is designed for a mixed farm. When we find legumes, which are annual and perennial legumes, and cereals, which are plants that need high quantity of nitrogen. This rotation is a 5-year plan rotation with 6 plots. Let's see, for example, the first plot. In the first plot, we have planted barley and alfalfa. It is a mixed cultivation. Then, after barley harvesting, we have alfalfa for 3 other years. After alfalfa, we plant wheat and maize or maize. And after wheat or maize, we plant lentils. And this is the logic. So in a 5-year, this is the rotation program. If we consider in the different plots in the same year, you have these plants. So we have 3 plots with alfalfa, 1 plot with wheat and maize, or only wheat or maize, depends how we plan. If we plan to plant 2 plants in the same year in a consecutive order for a better use of the soil and to have a coverage, lentils, and a mix of barley and alfalfa. In this case, livestock manure is applied to all the fields, and this is a good benefit. The animals benefit of the cultivation, and the cultivation plots benefit of livestock through application of livestock manure. Another interesting example here, we have a rotation plan with different plants that are presented here in a consecutive order, one of the after the other, and it is concluded with winter wheat. You know faba bean, it is a legume. It has the ability to fix the atmospheric nitrogen, which will help the other plants that will be planted after the faba bean. In order to reduce the losses, we plant or underseed a catch crop, which is in this case white mustard. Because of planting of catch crop that keep, how to say, or reduce the losses of nitrogen, and the nitrogen in the form of nitrates doesn't arrive, most of them doesn't arrive to underground water table. And the experiment shows, for example, that the soil nitrate losses are reduced about 80%. Then after we take off the faba beans, will remain in the soil. Now it is grown the white mustard, and then the white mustard will be decomposed. After white mustard, we plant the spring wheat, which needs nitrogen. And so in this case, this catch crop helped us to reduce the losses of nitrogen. And in this logic, we plant again underseed like grass and clover, the same again, and then we plant potato. You have an example here. explaining how another catch crop, in this case, which is sunflower, for example, is again reducing the losses of nitrogen. So in the between the rows of potato, we plant the sunflower, and in this case, the sunflower will help to reduce the losses of nitrogen, and then after that we'll plant the winter wheat, which is a plant which need again a lot of nitrogen. In this case, through catch crops, we had the possibility to save, to reduce the soil nitrate losses. When we planning a rotation or when we design a rotation program, it is important to use mixes of different species because for sure we have benefits, like we have higher biomass, we have coverage of the soil, and so reduction of erosion, we have higher biodiversity. But from the other side, these different species can have impact to each other. Some of them are suitable or suit to each other or fit to each other to be as a mix or to be planted as a mix, and some others are not suitable. They, in fact, they're antagonists. So in this case, for example, let's explain about carrots. Carrot can have positive effect in mixing, or when they can be applied mixing with other species like pea, lettuce, onion, tomato, leek, sage. In fact, we don't advise, do not suggest that use planting or mixing of carrot with dill because they have antagonist effects to each other. Celery, let's speak about celery. Again, celery have positive effect with mixed cropping with leek, tomato, terminate bean, cauliflower, cabbage. We don't suggest here any antagonist. The same for eggplant. For eggplant has positive effect when it is planted with beans, different beans. Crucifers or brassicas with aromatic plants, celery, onion, beet, again can have positive effect to each other, and is not suitable or is not advisable that we use mix of crucifers with strawberry, tomato, and beans. What about onion and garlic, the family of onions? Onions and garlics have positive effects with beets, strawberry, lettuce, chamomile, and have antagonism with pea and beans. Cucumbers have positive effect with bean, maize, pea, turnip, and antagonist effects with potato and aromatic plants. About spinach, spinach goes well with strawberry. We don't have any suggestion which can be the antagonist plant. For sure, somewhere exists another information, but this is the best information that I have regarding spinach. Potato. Potato have positive effect, can have and can create positive effect in mixed cropping with bean, cabbage, and eggplants, and have antagonist pumpkin, squash, cucumber, and tomato. Tomato, from the other side, goes well with onion, parsley, carrot, asparagus, and doesn't go well potato for sure because I mentioned previously fennel and cabbage.